Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. So in today's video, I want to show you just how easy and fun it is to sow your own vegetable seeds. If this is your first time visiting my channel, my name is Lula and I live in Zone 8. Now, I'm sure I don't have to tell you just how expensive things have become, and that includes vegetable plants. Yes, vegetable plants. Last year I went to my local nursery and I was really shocked. I was really surprised at how expensive some of the vegetable plants were. That's why I feel that it is so important to really master the skill of sowing your own seeds. Now, sowing your own seeds can save you a ton of money. A pack of vegetable seeds will give you way more plants than you could get from buying, say, a 6-pack or a 3-pack of vegetable plants. I know that sowing your own vegetable seeds can be very intimidating. I know that when I first started sowing my own vegetable seeds, I was very apprehensive, whether I was doing it right, whether they would even germinate, and how do I even care for them after they start growing. But I found that once I mastered that skill of sowing my own seeds, and you will feel this way, then you will find yourself buying less vegetable plants in the future, and that even includes sowing your own flower seeds. So, I highly recommend that you find out when your last estimated frost date is. Follow the directions on your seed packs as to when, you would sow your seeds. And normally you would sow your seeds anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks before your last estimated frost. Here in Zone 8 though, it's time for us to sow quite a few things like brassicas, your cabbages, your collards, your cauliflower, your celery, and other things. But if you're new to gardening, you can go online, download a planting guide for your growing zone. And I want to really invite you to join me today in sowing your own seeds. And in future videos, I want to show you how to care for your seedlings, from sowing your seedlings to planting them in your garden beds or your containers. So now some of the supplies you're going to need today are, you're going to need your vegetable seeds, you're going to need your seed starting mix, and that's not garden soil or potting mix, as that's too heavy for your seedlings to germinate. You're going to need a soilless mix that's really light and fluffy so that the roots of your seedlings can grow and spread, which will really help lead to healthier plants. Now, other supplies you will need are a container for your soil, a trowel to mix your seed starting mix, but a lot of times I like to use my hands. That's up to you. You're going to need a watering can and a watering bottle to water your seeds after you plant them. And this is optional as well. You can just use your watering can. You'll need some seed trays, a writing marker or a permanent marker, something to write the name of your vegetable names on so that you can put them in your seed trays. I like to use masking tape to stick to my seed trays. I just write the plants' names up there and I just stick it onto the seed trays. As far as the containers for sowing your seeds, you can use things you have around your home, like yogurt containers with just put drainage holes in them. Sometimes I use those plastic lettuce containers and I put drainage holes in them. I planted some onions in one last season and they did very well. So don't get overwhelmed by buying expensive seed trays. Now there's some other types of seed trays you can use, but as I mentioned, you can use what you have around your home. You can get a 6-pack, you can get a 3-pack, you can get a size like this. Normally I like to use these for planting things like eggplant and tomatoes because they're deeper and bigger. You can get a 72 cell seed tray like this one here. It has 72 seed cells in it, or you can plant 72 plants. It comes out, it has a tray that doesn't have holes in the bottom, so you don't have to worry about your water leaking out. These trays you can separate them. They don't have to all stay together. It also has a clear plastic dome that goes over it, so you can kind of turn it into a mini greenhouse. Now, some people get their seed starting mix together. They don't like to moisten it, but this is just the way I do. I like to moisten mine first before I add the seed starting mix to my trays. And the more you sow seeds, the easier it'll get, and you will learn how to come up with a system that works best for you. See, this is what it looks like. You don't want it to be where if you squeeze it, you're getting a whole bunch of water out. You don't want that, because then it's too wet, and if your soil is too wet, then it could cause your seeds to rot, and you don't want your seeds to rot. So I'm going to put this in my container, and we're going to get started planting some seeds. And I'm going to mash it down, because when I put my seed starting mix in my trays, I don't like to have any air pockets in there. I like to really mash it down to where all the air pockets are out, and this will help my seeds to germinate better. So this is how I just add a little bit more soil till it gets to be like that. So I'm not going to put you through watching me sow all the seeds, but I did pick out 3 of them: the bull beets, the celery, and the lilac bell peppers. And the reason I picked these out is because all these represent 3 different types of planting depths. And planting depths, how deep you're going to plant your seeds. Now, if you look on the back of your pack of seeds, it'll tell you how deep to plant your seeds in order to get them to germinate. And that's very important, because if you plant your seeds too deep, then it's going to take them a long time to get to the top, and they may rot before they can even germinate. Our planting depth is so very important. So you want to plant the beets a 1/2 inch deep. And then as far as the lilac bells, this one says to plant it a 1/4 inch deep. You can see that, 1/4 inch deep. And then with the celery, this is a whole different one, because you're not going to plant this one at all. It says, I don't know if you can see that. You're not going to plant your celery seeds, you're going to place them on the surface. And mainly because these celery seeds are so tiny that if you plant them too deep, they ain't going to germinate, because they're going to be buried under too much dirt. So you just want to put them on the top of the soil. And as far as the beets, I want to show you something about that one as well. And this is the same thing with the chard, because the beets and the chard are from the same family. So take a seed out of here, and I want to show you. I don't know if you can see this. Let me just roll it up, pull it up a little bit more. So the thing about the beet seeds is that it's like a little round cluster, and you'll find that these clusters of beet seeds have about 2 or 3 seeds all embedded in this little ball. If you plant one beet seed, you might get like 2 or 3 plants from it. So I'm going to show you how I plant these. I wanted to show you this little stick that I had. Now, I know once you get into really planting your seeds, you'll learn just how deep you should plant your seeds. But at first, when you planting seeds, you might feel a little intimidated about planting them. So if you feel intimidated about the planting depth, you can take a little stick and mark measurements up here. So for the 3 plants that we're going to do today, which I guess 2, because you're not going to really plant the celery, but I did put a marking of a 1/4 inch here, a 1/2 inch there, and then 1 inch right there. So that's how deep you want to plant your seeds. So be sure and look at your seed packets on the back and read how deep you should plant your seeds before you start planting them. And that way you'll be very successful when it comes to planting your seeds. The first one we're going to plant are the Utah Tall celery seeds. Now these are, as I mentioned, tiny. And usually I find that the tinier the seed, the less deep you have to plant. And when I get a seed, hoping the wind don't blow it away. Put this over to the side. When I get a seed this little, this small, that tells me that I'm not going to plant it at all. If anything, I might sprinkle some vermiculite or something on it. But I'm not going to plant this at all because it's small. Usually the bigger the seed, the more deeper you're going to plant it. But there again, be sure and look at your seed packets. So this is the celery, and see how little it is. It's just about impossible to even get the seed up. So You might have to kind of moisten your finger a little bit and get some of those seeds up there, and then just take and try to, let's see if I can hold it up so you can see it, and then just try to drop some of these seeds onto the surface of the soil. And then all you're going to do is just take your finger and mash it in. Okay, and let me do another one. So I still have some more seeds, and you can just moisten your finger. It's on your finger there, and just kind of dribble the seeds right onto the soil there, and then you want to mash it to the soil so that it can have something to anchor to, right? And then once you do that, you want to, let's see where my spray bottle is. Once you do that, you want to go back and spray the seeds so that they can moisten a bit. The soil is already damp, so you don't want to, that's why I like to moisten my soil before I plant my seeds. The soil is already damp, so I don't have to do a lot of watering. Let's see, what do I have next up there? The beets. Now the beets said that they were going to be planted a ½ inch deep that we saw, okay? So I'm going to plant a beet seed right here, and that's going to be about a ½ inch deep, and so that's going to be right there on that marker. So let me just turn it around and look at it first. Make a hole and stick it in there a ½ inch deep according to my little marker here, and put my seed in. Just gonna put one in there. So it's up to you how many you want to put in there. Sometimes I'll put 2 seeds in there. So if I'm going to put 2 seeds in there, I like to plant them in a different area. That way if I want to separate them later, I can. But beets, I find they don't like to really be separated once you plant them. They don't, to me, they don't do as well when I separate them. So I'm just going to plant another ½ inch deep hole right there. And then I'm going to take my beet seed and I'm just going to drop it right here. I'll drop it in that hole there, and then drop the other one in that hole, and I'm just going to mash down and cover it up. And that's all there is to that. And then I'm going to go back and water that one as well with my spray bottle. Okay, just like that. Now I got the California Wonder Pepper, and that one is going to be planted a ½ inch deep. So I go back to my little marker, and I know a ½ of an inch is right there. So I'm going to put my marker in there right up to there. So that's going to be a little bit less deep than the beet seed. Let me show you what the pepper seeds look like. Those are the pepper seeds. So they're kind of wider. Well, not as wide, but they are very thin. So I'll just drop it in the hole here, right there, in there. And it didn't go in, so it's right there. I'm just going to push it in, and there it goes, right in the hole there. Normally I like to plant more than one seed, so I'm just going to make another hole and put another pepper seed in there. And once I get it in there, I will just cover it up with my soil. Go back and really wet it again. And that's all there is to planting your seeds. Okay, so we planted our seeds, so now we want to keep them in a warm location on top of a refrigerator if you don't have a heat mat, and then wait for them to germinate. We want to keep the soil moist. We don't want it to be soggy, but we just want it to be moist. Once they germinate, so you got to really watch them really closely, if you don't have grow lights, so you can see when they're germinating, and then once they germinate, you want to put them in front of a sunny window, maybe a south facing window. Just keep, turning them and making sure that they're getting the light. I would also recommend that if you don't have grow lights, which plants do really well if you can get grow lights, because this will prevent them from becoming leggy. It is so hard to grow plants and keep them from becoming leggy without grow lights, but it's possible. So if you don't have grow lights, you want to make sure that you keep up when they germinate, or when they pop up from the soil, and when they do, you want to take them outside. Not only keep them in front of a sunny window, but you want to take them outside and give them at least 2 to 3 minutes of sunlight. Now, I don't mean taking them out if it's freezing cold outside or if it's raining really, really hard. So you don't want to take them out then, because they'll get too wet, they'll get too cold, they may die because they're very vulnerable at this point. So you only want to keep them out just for a few minutes and then bring them back in. And you want to keep doing this several times until your plants really start growing, and hopefully that will help to prevent them from becoming leggy. But if you have them under your grow lights, just leave them there, and what we're going to do is we're going to wait for the true leaves to appear. Just make sure you keep them watered, keep them moist, and keep them warm. But once they germinate, you can take them off of your heat mat if you are using a heat mat. So you can take them off of there and just make sure that they're watered from that point on. And then when the true leaves start growing, appearing, then that's when we're gonna take the next step, which is fertilizing them. Now, you don't have to fertilize your seeds before the true leaves come, because your seeds have all the nutrients in them that they need until the true leaves appear, and that's when they're going to need additional fertilizer, to help them to grow. I did a video on how to identify the true leaves. I will put a link below in the description box if you want to watch it, and I'll come back in another video and I'll show you what to do next when the true leaves appear. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you on the next one. Bye bye. Look guys, I wanted to show you my purple of Sicily cauliflower. Now, I thought these were dead because look at some of the other ones. The weather had just really beat them down. Anyway, I was so surprised that I had a little cauliflower here, another little one there, and there, and there. So it's a pretty bright spot of color at this time of the year.